Welcome into this Thursday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Mike Renner, JP Acosta, as always. JP, I might need to lean on you today. My voice has been in and out because on Monday night, I was obviously, I don't know about you, but my dad used to, growing up, every single defensive play for the Packers, he screams. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're getting blown out. I was at a Patriots game in maybe 2006 or something where they lost 35-0. And you're still screaming late into the fourth quarter in that game. And so I was on that last Eagles drive. People are flowing out of the stadium. I'm still going, me and my brother. So my voice is a little touch and go here at this point in time.
We're good. Let's do it. Let's make sure we get the voice back. Hopefully, we won't have any more circumstances like the Packers game where anything crazy happens. But let's do it.
All right, let's get to locks before we get to our Week 11 now. Week 11 preview. All season long, heading up to the playoffs, Cash App is sponsoring our locks. We'll track how we're doing each episode, with the winner being presented with the Cash App Locks trophy at the end of the season. And JP, not only did the Jags lose, the Jags plus 1.5 miss was one of the most heartbreaking non-covers. I mean, when they were up 28-10, you're like, okay, that's like, I was already chalking it up. And then even when they don't get the 2-point conversion to go up 3, I'm like, okay, we're safe. We got it. And then to lose on a touchdown, the last play of the game, a defensive touchdown, that has to be one of the worst beats of the season.
Heartbreaking. It was. I was like, oh, that's gonna suck. That's absolutely gonna be terrible. The one for me is Jackson Dart only getting 6 rushing attempts before leaving the game. He was bound for at least 10, 12. And then the concussion happens, and I'm just like, man, it's just one of those days. And then obviously the Browns minus 2.5. I've learned my lesson to just never, ever put my faith in the Browns again.
Yeah, I hate betting bad teams because bad teams do bad things. Like bad teams, you can't rely on them. That's why they're bad. But Dart, I think the scary thing going back and watching that again is like, it wasn't that big of a hit. Not to say we're in like Tua territory where like that was like one of the softest hits, not to like say any hit soft, but like when Tua had that scary concussion. But this really was kind of a routine going to the ground hit. And that's what you worry about when a guy has been in concussion protocol as many times as he's been this season.
Yeah, it's tough. And especially for a guy like him who's a rookie, a lot of concussions even through the first 7 games that he's played. And it just comes back to the reason why they fired Brian Daboll, but also something that Jackson Dart has to work on. He has to protect himself a little bit more. He can't be the same reckless player that he was at Ole Miss or even at USC because he is no longer the biggest kid on the field.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to the slate here, and we'll start with not only the game of the week, but what many are calling the game of the year. Seahawks-Rams, version 1.0. They haven't played yet this season. Rams 3-point favorites in this one at home. Over-under is 49.5, and some numbers to put into context just how good these teams are. You have the Rams, who are the number 1 offense in terms of success rate this season, the number 2 defense in terms of EPA per play. The Seahawks are the number 1 offense in terms of dropback EPA per play, so the number 1 passing offense in the NFL this year, while having the number 5 EPA per play defense and number 1 defense against the run this season. So this one feels like a heavyweight bout.
This feels like when, like in the MCU, when like Thor first fights Hulk, and everybody's just like, oh my God, it's about to happen. Like 2 of the strongest in the universe really going at it. It feels like we're watching, like you said, it's a heavyweight fight. It's a hoss fight. And I think this is so cool because I also think it's a look into the modern evolution of football, which is going back to playing with a lot more big people on the field. We've seen the rise of jumbo offensive sets this season. We've seen a lot more 12, 13 personnel. The Seahawks sort of major in 12 and 21, where the Rams have recently become one of the best 13 personnel teams in the NFL. They have 11 touchdowns. 11 touchdowns via 13 personnel this season. No other team in the NFL has more than 2. and the rest of the NFL has 8 combined. They have shredded teams out of this personnel look. So I'm really curious if we're making comparisons again. This feels like an Old West movie where both shooters are ready to pull the trigger, but which defense blinks first?
Yeah, I think the biggest kind of storyline in this game, you touched on it, the personnel usage and what that personnel usage is doing. It's been talked about a lot, but it's worth reiterating that they are not putting 3 tight ends on the field to run the football more effectively. These teams are not effective rushing offenses. They're literally both negative in terms of EPA per run this season. Rams rank 13th, Seahawks 26th. That is not what they're doing. They're doing it so you put guys on the field that can't cover. And then you get one-on-one matchups with the guys that can cover, but if it's one-on-one against Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, that's a mismatch. So that's what they're trying to do. Or if it's Jack Smith and Jigba, even against double coverage, that's a mismatch this season. So that is the whole point of what these teams are doing. But kind of both teams know that. So I'm actually more excited to see the Shula versus McDonald, the DCs in this one, than I am actually the OCs, because I think the OCs, we know what they're going to do. We know the game plan they're going to come with, but no one's actually been able to really have answers for what these offensive coordinators are doing. I'm curious to see how they match those personnel looks.
So, and something that I found was really interesting, I actually wrote about the story for CBS. You can go find it later today. Great. Something that I found really interesting is the Seahawks match 13 personnel with nickel 58% of the time. That is miles more than anybody else in the NFL. The next team is the New England Patriots at 35.5% when playing nickel against 13 personnel. They want to play light, and they have the bodies to play light. When they defend the run in the light box, they're the best team in the NFL defending the run in the light box. And the reason that they do that, and they're able to do that against bigger teams, is because they weaponize their defensive backs and their linebackers as run blitzers. That way, you're stealing gaps. You're changing the picture for offensive linemen up front, especially with how much zone everybody runs. You change the picture for the offensive linemen. You're changing who you have to be accountable for as a blitzer. Drake Thomas has been a really effective run blitzer for them this year. Ty Okada's had some really nice moments. And again, it just feels like this is like the perfect Mike McDonald defensive season because, again, you're getting good play from Drake Thomas and Ty Okada, who weren't expected to be starters going into the season and now are some of your quality players on the team. And then up front, Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, they have all played incredible against the run this season. So I'm curious from the Chris Shula side of things, do you actually play this team in nickel? I think they can. They have the bodies up front to defend the run. I think with adding Poona Ford, this is sort of the game where Poona Ford has to become like the reason why you signed him. You can't just play him in base and take him off the field because you have more than enough quality pass rushers outside of him. You have Jared Verse and Byron Young playing really well, Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner, whoever you want to play next to Poona Ford. But if you can show that you can defend the run out of nickel and just match their 12 with lighter bodies, I don't see why this can't be a really fascinating matchup on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and I do think it also features two guys you didn't touch on in this that I think that I want to highlight is the slot corners in this. Quentin Lake on one side, Nick Manwar on the other side, and basically what the slot position has turned into. I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, slot corner was your guy who was not long enough, big enough to play on the outside. And because it was a passing down position. It was a guy who came on the field on third downs. You knew it was pass coverage, and he had to be a little shiftier to guard the slots in the NFL. That's not what it is nowadays. It is guys that are 200 plus pounds. It is basically a safety that is awesome against the run. That is your core traits necessary is tackler, ability to play off blocks first, coverage second. That's what it's turned into. And I think both these teams have a guy in Quentin Lake, Nick Manwar, that are uniquely capable, that are allowing them to live in those nickels on early downs.
I actually wrote about that at Northwestern for my master's project. I wrote about how the slot defender body types are changing. And a large part of it is because, we talked about a lot with like how Sean McVay has always been on like the cutting edge of offensive evolution. First, it was all the wide zone stuff. And because teams are playing such light boxes, you had to have a nickel defender who was a little crazy, who wanted to defend the run, who wanted to throw their body in there, and you wouldn't have to worry about him breaking down again in the run game. So now you have guys who can match against those power slots. You think of like Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. You think of those bigger slot receivers who can dig guys out on duo, who can actually be effective run blockers. The best way to match that, you got to have a little bit bigger of a slot corner, a little bit bigger of a nickel. So I think this game is really going to come down to, like you said, those slot corners. And I also think the linebackers in this game are going to have to get depth. They're going to have to be rangy in coverage. Because one thing that the Rams have not done very well this season, their linebackers have not covered very well. And it makes sense because Nate Landman and Omar Spates aren't exactly like the rangy guys. They're more of they're the between the tackles. You want them running forward at all times. So how often are the Rams asking them to be in coverage and sort of isolating them? Or do you risk playing a lot of quarters with Cam Kinchins and Cam Curl playing real flat-footed on any over route and hoping that your corner can stay with Jackson Smith and Jigba on any vertical route?
Dude, so many good matchups. I can't wait for this one. Very, very good NFC West matchup. Going to be just good ball all around, but we got to make a pick. Do you have any lean one way or the other? Because I've gone back and forth with this one personally.
I've gone back and forth. I normally lean the side of defense when it comes to matchups where offenses are a little even, but I just think Matthew Stafford's playing at a really high level. I also have questions about which team is actually going to run the ball more effectively. And if you were asking me which offensive line will be able to generate push in this game, I would say the Rams offense has a better offensive line, but Seattle's defensive line is one of the best units in football. So I'm going to say the Seahawks, but I'm not 100% confident in that.
Yeah, I have leaned Seahawks as well. And again, I like I said, I've gone back and forth. I don't have a strong take. I think there are big matchups that favor each team. I think the Rams' defensive interior against the Seahawks' offensive interior is a big mismatch. I think Jackson Smith, the Jigba against anyone in the Rams secondary is a big mismatch. So there are fights that go one way or the other. I just think the Seahawks are the better, more well-rounded football team at this point in time. But it's an NFC West matchup. I've said before, I hate picking NFC West matchups, even if they're not maybe the two best teams in the NFL. And when it's this, I'm just going to enjoy it.
Let's just root for a good game.
All right, let's take a quick break. After that, we got the rest of the Week 11 slate.
You can't count on accurate expiration dates.
That is a rookie mistake.
Or the kindness of strangers. But thanks to CBS Sports, you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount+.
NFC is not the only Western division with a big matchup. Chiefs go to Denver, face the Broncos. Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites, even though they're on the road. The over-under's 44.5 in this one. How do we see this one playing out?
This is a bad game to not have Pat Surtain in it.
I know.
Like, that was the first thing I was thinking of when I was writing my notes out for this game, because the Chiefs just have so many weapons in their arsenal with this offense that if you choose to play man defense against this Chiefs team, there are so many options that they can choose from. Rashee Rice, I said it was going to be a big Rashee Rice game because of how they use him against man coverage. He's their go and get a bucket guy. It's not Travis Kelce, it's Rashee Rice. You design him targets in the slot. You design him targets isolated where he's going to win on end breakers. He can win through contact. And then you just have all the verticality, the explosiveness of Xavier Worthy. You have the explosiveness of Hollywood Brown. And Travis Kelce has sort of become this. He's not the star or the engine of the offense anymore. And I think that's fine because when he's like minimized in this role, he shines a lot more. So I'm really curious how this Broncos defensive secondary matches up against this Kansas City passing core. But it also might not matter because if Josh Simmons doesn't play, that's a major issue. Their splits with him on the field versus off the field are scary when it comes to pass protection. With Josh Simmons on the field, they have a 30.1% pressure rate allowed. Without him on the field, that goes to 39%. That's scary going up against Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, because you're not going to win any of those opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, think back to the last year's game, the 16-14 last-second field goal block game. Nick Bonito took over that game. And then I think Joe Moore is probably still an upgrade over Wanye and Kingsley from last year. But I'm not sure there's many. I mean, there's only, you probably count on one hand the amount of left tackles I trust to block Nick Bonito, right? He is uniquely difficult for an inexperienced left tackle like Joe Moore to block. So, I just think I think the Broncos still stymie the Chiefs offense. If they had Pat Surtain, I would pick them to win at home. I think they just could muck it up, do basically what they've done all year to get out to 8-2, and come away, block up the blitz packages well enough and just kind of eke out a win. But without Surtain, there's just too much in this Chiefs receiving core now that they did not have last year when these two teams faced, right? Rashee Rice is playing this time around. I think Xavier Worthy is just a different animal this time around. I think this Chiefs offense is going to put up some points, and then I don't trust the Broncos offense to be able to keep pace.
That's the biggest thing for me. I don't trust Bo Nix against Steve Spagnuolo. And I think we've talked about it before, but the biggest issue with Bo Nix is that sometimes he's scared of his own shadow and he gets really happy feet in the pocket. The best example of this was the Thursday night game. I think it was 2nd and goal. And Evan Ingram is open on a wheel route. Beautifully designed play. Bo Nix feels pressure that isn't there because the Raiders are dropping 8 and then dirts the ball at Evan Ingram's feet. And you're just like, what happened? It's open. What are you scared of? And that's the biggest question that I have for the Broncos offense going up against Spags, is because Spags will make you see ghosts. He'll make you see things that aren't there. And then the things that you don't see, he's actually going to bring it. So something that actually Bo Nix both has been better at identifying pressure this season from a pre-snap perspective, and also from a post-snap perspective, still has not calmed down his feet, which worries me a lot because he was the guy coming in with a lot of experience, and also because it's like his brain just short wires when the ball is snapped. Like he just forgets everything that he identified. So I'm worried about the passing game aspect of this Broncos offense against the Chiefs defense, especially if they can't move the ball on the ground.
Yeah, I'm going back and reading my prospect notes on Bo Nix and some of the cons, because this has been him. Like he honestly is just like the exact same guy he's always been in Oregon. I wrote skittish movements in the pocket, gets off balance intentionally. You used to just like start running from a clean pocket to throw a dig, and it's like, why did he just start running forward? And I think that's just how he wants to play. Leaves slants, glances, posts on back shoulder, predetermines pre-snap, flustered when he doesn't get his read, and then accuracy is a big unknown in the offense. It's just that's what we're seeing now, is a guy who, and that's it. Like, because if you said he was, instead of a bottom 5 accuracy quarterback in the NFL, a top 5 accuracy quarterback, or even just like above average, I think we're not debating it. He's a franchise quarterback because of all the other good things he does. But he's just missing so many throws and with the way that offense is set up to be sort of death by 1,000 cuts, or just like lull you to sleep, being methodical, and then one play over the top. Like they don't really hit the intermediate range consistently. It's a lot of underneath. Oh, you came up too much. We're hitting you up top. you can't be inaccurate in an offense like that. It's just not. You can be inaccurate in a consistently mid-range passing game. That's the kind of offense you can survive on being missing here and there, but you can't in an offense where you just have to be very methodical about moving the football.
The margin for error is so thin in those offenses that if you don't hit on those downfield shots when they're called, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball. And I also don't think they don't have the skill position group to make those inaccuracies go away. Like they have Cortland Sutton, who I think can do that, but you just worry a little bit about Troy Franklin, who's still coming into his own as a receiver. I actually think Pat Bryant has shown some really cool stuff as a blocker and sort of like a dirty work receiver, which has really helped, but they need juice. They need somebody to give them some explosives, which is why I think RJ Harvey is so important to this offense as a receiver, because he's their explosiveness. He is their yards after the catch guy. So if this game comes down to the fourth quarter and it comes down to a close game, like most of the Broncos' close games have been this season, I think I bet more on Patrick Mahomes figuring it out than Bo Nix.
How worried are we if the Chiefs lose this game about them missing the playoffs? Because they'll drop to 5-5, and their schedule going forward after this: Colts, Cowboys, Texans, Chargers, Titans, Broncos, Raiders. So you got 2 layups. You get 2 easy wins there. You get to 7-5 easily. But then the rest is not going to be, there's no cakewalk in the rest of those games. So are we worried?
I'm a little worried, but I also think that the team that they're fighting for that wild card spot with, the Jaguars, they also still have the Chargers and the Broncos left on their schedule. And also 2 games against the Colts and then 2 games against the Titans. But their schedule is not just as tough, but that schedule still is very tough considering that to play the Colts twice this season. So I think if they do lose, it's going to come down to the last week of the season between those 2 teams. And again, if it comes down to the fact that Trevor Lawrence tripped on an offensive lineman's foot and scored a game-winning touchdown anyway, that kept the Chiefs out of the playoffs, it'd be the most Jacksonville Jaguars thing ever.
That would be pretty great, actually. But yeah, if they do lose, though, I think the division's out of play. You're going on the road, which is something they've never had to do in the Patrick Mahomes era, at least for the first game. They've done it a couple times after that, but never as a wild card. All right, Bucs-Bills, where the Bills at home are 5.5-point favorites. 47.5 points is the over-under, but some notable weather here. Could be snow. Could be very windy, could be around freezing at kickoff in this one.
This is lining up for a Buffalo Bills snowplow game.
Yep.
Like the passing offense isn't working. Things are just hitting the fan. Everybody, like Josh Allen, has the zoomies. And you can tell that he's playing uncomfortable because there is no explosive and there is no easy answer in this offense. He has constricted himself to always hunting the big play to keep the passing game moving. And when you're always hunting the big play, you sometimes miss the easy ones. And that's what's happening in this passing game. They're so constricted that Josh Allen is starting to play a little bit reckless. And that's not something we've seen from him over the last couple of years. This is not the defense to play reckless against, though. This is not a team that you want to play reckless against. I know they just had the Patriots game where Drake May hit them for a few explosives. The run game popped off towards the end. But Todd Bowles is really good at managing a defense and managing a game. I think their run defense is going to come out a little bit better looking than the explosives that they gave up against the Patriots. But I do think this game is going to be a little bit more of a grind out game for the Bills instead of like a Josh Allen fireworks show.
Yeah, I think the weather actually helps the Bills in this one. I think if it were a completely clean 60-degree day with no wind, I think that would be advantageous for the Bucs and how they want to play right now, given that Bucky Irving back at practice, but still a limited participant. Without him, their ground game's just been like really a non-factor. It just has not done much for them. Chris Godwin, limited participant as well. So both don't look like they're on track to play. On the flip side, Dalton Kincaid looks unlikely to play. So a lot of injuries to the skill position, but one team has a trump card offensively, and it's the running game and their offensive line. That's right now the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I think this game sort of leans itself towards the Bills' run game, sort of mowing them down and not even just like generating explosives, but if they can just stay consistently successful, I think that'll help in this game where if you can put the Bucs into playing from behind mode without Chris Godwin, without Bucky Irving. This team has struggled offensively without both those guys. And I think Baker Mayfield has also struggled without having those guys on the field. So I think if they put them in a position where they have to play from behind and you can sort of focus all your attention on Emeka Egbuka, this could be a game that the Bills win. But I am curious in just how the Bills offense adjusts and how they look coming out of what was a colossal stinker against the Dolphins.
Yeah, I like the Bills as well, but I don't know. I don't have a super strong handle. It truly is going to depend on the weather. Like if it is snowy, windy, I like the Bills. If it's better, I think it'll be a tight one either way. All right, let's take a quick break. After that, the rest of the Week 11 slate.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Let's get to Madrid, where we have a hotly contested battle between 3 and 7 teams as the Commanders and Dolphins face off. Dolphins are 2.5-point favorites. 47.5 points is the over-under. 2.5-point favorites against the Washington Commanders. Who would have thought that preseason? Now, obviously, a lot of that's because no Jaden Daniels, no Terry McLaurin yet back at practice. So it's going to be Mariota and company trying to move the football against this Dolphins team. It's just like a disappointment bowl. It's just like two fan bases, just like, we don't even need to win at this point. Just get us out of our misery here.
I honestly feel like this game's gonna put up a lot of points, and it's not because like both offenses are fully loaded or like they're super explosive, but I just think the defenses are a little bit. They're just bad enough to give up a lot of points. So I think that this game, I think the Dolphins' run game has actually been really good in the last few weeks. Patrick Paul has been amazing at left tackle, especially in the run game. Devon Achane has been awesome, and just one thing that Mike McDaniel can always do is design the hell out of a run game. He's always been good at getting creative and fun looks for his skill position players in the backfield. Devon Achane has been incredible this season, and not only as a runner, but as a receiver. So that's why one of my locks for this game is Devon Achane's over on receiving yards. Because, again, like the biggest thing to do against this Commanders team is isolate their linebackers in coverage. Jahmyr Gibbs had, I think, 2 receiving touchdowns. I think he might have 2 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown last week. And you just want to get him isolated against Bobby Wagner, against Frankie Louvu. You want to try and get those guys in space because they just can't keep up anymore. So I think this game is actually going to be pretty fun to watch. Like, it's an early morning game. You want to wake up with points, and I think this game is going to give you points.
Yeah, I will be up at 6:30 in the morning. I'll be on the West Coast time. I'm going to a wedding, Monday wedding. But West Coast time, usually my favorite time zone to be on for NFL football games. I don't know if a 6:30 Commanders Dolphins game is a great usage of that. I think I'd rather be on East Coast time for that. I'll just say for the rest, it is elite. All right, let's get to Chargers at Jags. Chargers 3-point favorites here heading to Jacksonville. 43.5 points is the over-under, but it is that dreaded cross-country game. How do we see this one playing out?
So I'm trying to find the playoff implications for this game because this is a massive game for both teams. And it feels sort of like this feels like a playoff game. This feels like a playoff entry game. I believe, according to
at least
Aaron
for the
Schatz,
Jacksonville.
Yes, for the
at
Jaguars.
least for Jacksonville.
For the Jaguars, according to Aaron Schatz, if the Jaguars win, they have a 57% chance of making the playoffs. If they lose, it goes to 19%.
That's a big swing.
Chargers win, 91% chance to make the playoffs. Chargers lose, 58% chance. So again, if the Jaguars are a serious football team, if they want to be a serious team in 2025, they go win this game. The problem is I also just think that the Chargers defense is well built enough to sort of take away some of the things the Jaguars want to be good at. The Jaguars, as of late, they've used a lot of LaQuint Allen and Travis Etienne in the backfield together. I actually think it's kind of interesting how LaQuint Allen has sort of taken over as like the pseudo RB2 for this team instead of Bashul Tutin, because like against the Texans, they had him lined up as like a fullback and we're using him on like fullback stuff. And I was like, that's interesting. Like I love LaQuint Allen coming out of Syracuse because he's a dirty work running back, and the Jaguars sort of used him like that. But I think the Chargers interior defensive line against the Jaguars interior offensive line, especially if Ezra Cleveland does not play, I feel like that's the biggest mismatch on the field. And then the Jaguars pass rush is really frustrating because this season they are 8th in pass rush win rate, according to ESPN. They're 20th in pressure rate, but they are tied for last in sack rate. They're getting to the quarterback, but they're not bringing the quarterback down. That's the biggest issue with this team. They cannot bring the quarterback down, and I just don't understand how that happens. So in this game, if they can't get Justin Herbert on the ground, if they cannot sack Justin Herbert, I feel like you're giving up a lot of lanes to Ladd McConkey and that receiving core that has improved a lot since the beginning of the season.
They should, though. Like they like everyone can. If the Jaguars can't, it's a problem. I do think you've seen two things happen, though, of late for this Jags team. One is that the crazy turnover spree they were on early in the season kind of dried up. Now, they had some big ones last week against Texans, but 14 through 5 games, only 3 since then. And that's kind of exposed that, hey, they're not actually the most talented. They're not actually this crazy talented defense. And then, two, just the offensive line is the big problem. Like they are one of 11 teams now that are actually negative in terms of EPA per play on the season. And I think a big part of that is just when you have a bad offensive line, and I would categorize the Jaguars in that bad territory, you can't be consistent. When you have to play left-handed or scheme around it every single game, you're just gonna go in large funks because that's just the nature of how offenses work. So I think those two things really give me pause for the Jags making a run and getting back into this playoff picture, is the fact that offensive line is not getting any better anytime soon, and you can't rely on turnovers the way they did early on this game.
I will say if the Jaguars are going to win this game, I think Britton Strange might be coming back, which is going to be huge for that offense. Yes. They have missed his juice after the catch, especially with Travis Hunter out. And then Brian Thomas Jr. still nursing that ankle injury. You could tell against the Texans did not respect anybody else outside of Parker Washington, which is an insane thing to say, by the way. Like, Parker Washington's been incredible this season, especially.
Derek Stingley following him to the slot.
Yeah, they had Derek Stingley shadowing Parker Washington. And I was like, what's happening this season? Like, what's going on here? But if Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't play, you can tell that teams don't respect the passing game of the Jaguars because there is no verticality. There's no threat down the field, especially with Travis Hunter out of the game. So I'm curious, if Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't play, can Trevor Lawrence get this team to where they need to be in this game by just hitting the mid-range shots?
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, only 8 deep completions all season on 35 attempts. Their downfield passing game has been, I don't think it's even a hot take to say, the worst in the NFL. It's been the worst in the NFL this season. All that being said, I kind of like the Chargers in this one. I'm sorry, JP.
I think the Chargers win too. I just worry you can scheme up bad receivers. You can scheme up bad running backs. You can even scheme up bad quarterbacks. You cannot scheme around a bad offensive line. You can't hide a bad offensive line, especially up the middle of the defense. And with Ezra Cleveland out, I just worry that they're not going to get any push in the run game, which is going to limit Travis Etienne's ability to be a factor in this game, and everything starts to fall apart from there.
All right, let's get to Bengals at Steelers. Steelers 5.5-point favorites. 49.5 points is the over/under. We've seen this one already. The Bengals won this one already at home on Thursday Night Football. How do we see part 2 going?
The unction part 2 is back. I actually kind of think the Steelers run away with this one because since they shifted their defense and played Jalen Ramsey at free safety, it feels like they've sort of been able to keep a lid on most things. They've been able to force teams to matriculate the ball down the field instead of like playing cover 1 and having to chase everybody across the field. I feel like Jalen Ramsey's played a lot better in that safety spot, and they're able just to get a little bit more pass rush. I still don't know if their corners on the outside can really hang with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but I do think that whenever you're playing the Bengals, you can go ahead and circle a big offensive performance. One of my locks in this week is Aaron Rodgers over on passing yards, which again, I don't know if I'd ever bet going into the season, but it's against the Bengals, and he shredded the Bengals last time. So I think they're going to get another shredding this time. I think the Steelers win. They have to win, right? Like if they don't win this game, if they get swept by the Bengals this season, they don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
All I'm looking forward to for the rest of the Bengals season is it's not Joe Burrow coming back. It's if they can do what hasn't been done, at least in the database I had. I think it goes back to 2012. There has never been a defense that's been so bad that they are allowing more EPA per play than the best offense in the NFL that year. So there hasn't been a defense that's actually turned every team they've played into an offense that's better than the best offense in the NFL that season. Until this Bengals team. This Bengals team is doing it. They are turning every team they've played into an offense that's better than the most effective offense this year, which has been the Indianapolis Colts. I think that continues. And that's why I really like the over in this game.
I think that's sort of impressive. Like that's honestly kind of impressive. You turn every team into the Indianapolis Colts when you play against them. And again, it's better than the Colts. Like you're turning every team into like the freaking greatest show on turf against you. I think it goes back like what the Bengals problem is largely. I think I saw a stat going around that said like of the top 4 players and top 5 players and missed tackles this season, 4 of them are Bengals. Like that's there you go. Like that's why you're so bad defensively. You can't tackle, you can't cover anybody outside of DJ Turner, and you can't get pass rush outside of Trey Hendrickson. Like there's so many holes that like you could at least solve one hole by tackling a little better. But this team is awful in every aspect of defensive football.
Yeah, it's tough. It makes for fun games though, and they've played some of the most fun. And I think this one is going to be no different. I think Steelers win, but I'd love the over in that one. Let's get to Ravens Browns. Albeit briefly, Ravens 7.5-point favorites. 39.5 points is the over under. Do the Browns have any chance against this new look-ish Ravens defense?
I don't think they have a chance against this defense, but I think the Browns defense can really sort of stymie the Ravens offense for a little bit. Since Lamar Jackson's come back, 55% of his passes have been under 2.5 seconds. They have leaned on quick game this season. And the biggest reason is because Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Falele cannot hold up in pass pro. They are 2 sieves at guard, and that sort of weakens everybody else around them. So I just think this game could bode well for Mason Graham and Malik Collins as pass rushers. And if you can get pressure up front, like through the middle of the defense, you can sort of frustrate Lamar Jackson. The problem is I just don't think the Browns are going to be able to move the ball. I really don't. Like Dylan Gabriel has been awful this season. Like he's been horrible. So this game is probably going to be real grimy. It's going to be real low scoring, but I do think the Ravens find a way to win it because I trust Lamar Jackson to figure it out more than I trust Dylan Gabriel to.
Yeah, I honestly think this is just a blowout. I think I do think the Browns, like they'll slow down Lamar, but it's going to be a blowout, and that's going to be like 21-3. Like it'll be over relatively early just because I don't think the Browns move the ball whatsoever. All right, let's get to Packers at Giants. Packers 7-point favorites on the road. 43.5 points is the over-under. My only note for this game I wrote here, I just wrote Jameis because this is the first time we've been blessed with Jameis Winston this season.
Man, they really don't want Russ to play. They really do not want Russ anywhere near a football field.
They know who sells tickets.
Exactly. Like it's crazy that like 5 years ago, like you could tell somebody 5 years ago, Russell Wilson was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and now he can't start for the 2-8 Giants. Like, what a fall. We're probably going to get like a generation of kids that think like their earliest memory of Russell Wilson is the Broncos version. And that's terrible. That's like terrifying to think of. Like your only version of Russell Wilson you're going to get is Broncos country. Let's ride Russell Wilson.
Is he even, and this is going to sound bad, but like, is he even in the league after this? Like, is this it?
I think this is it. Like if you can't beat out Jameis, like if Jameis is starting over you to actually like play football games, I think it's over.
Because also he doesn't have the strongest, I mean, he's not a bad guy by any means, but he does not have the strongest track record of locker rooms going. Like if he's your backup, I'm not sure a lot of people are like fighting for Russell Wilson as your backup, given his just how locker rooms have responded to him previously.
But he could be a pretty good mentor, I think, for younger quarterbacks. Is that going to be his pivot? Is he going to pivot to becoming Joe Flacco? Like, is he going to be the Joe Flacco moving forward where like you bring him in to take some of the beating for a young quarterback that you don't want to play early in the season and that's how you make your living? I don't know.
I think just personality wise, again, I don't want to keep hammering him, but like, I don't think a lot of teams are going to be banging on the door for Joe Flacco, or for him to be their Joe Flacco. This game, though, of any for the Packers, of all like the LaFleur, should he get fired? And we're literally going to be talking about it at noon on CBS HQ about should LaFleur get fired? Is he on the hot seat? I don't think he's on the hot seat. The only way he's on the hot seat is if they end like the Bears did last year and they just like don't win a game from here on out. But this game should play right into what he's been wanting to do all season. You're facing the worst rushing defense in the NFL in terms of EPA per play. That has kind of been their downfall. In my estimation, we talked about it after on the Tuesday show, is that he just like is completely unwilling to scrap the running game in games where it's just not working. Well, in this game, it should work. I think this is the one time I would feel fairly confident in a Packers blowout as a 7-point favorite because they haven't really blown on anyone since week 1, as we've said.
I will say this kind of mixes well for an upset because we talked about how the Packers like to play down to their competition and we're getting the Jameis game where like anything can happen. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an upset in this game, but I do think the Packers are just a little bit better built to make to have their pass rush really turn up this game. And I also think if they can't run the ball against the Giants, there is a much bigger conversation that needs to be had about this team if they can't move the football on the Giants.
Yeah, if they can't move the football on the Giants, what has to happen, in my estimation? You got to reshuffle the offensive line. You brought in Aaron Banks at left guard. He's obviously not working out. And you moved a Pro Bowl left guard to center where he hadn't played really full-time since college. And that combination on the interior has not gotten the job done. I think you reshuffle, you have multiple guys who play multiple positions, whether it's Elton Jenkins, whether it's Jordan Morgan, you just try a different combination up front to see if that's going to fix it. Because if it ain't, like I said, they got real problems here. All right, Bears at Vikings. Vikings 3-point favorites here. Over-unders 47.5 points. A big NFC North matchup with some big playoff implications as well. I think this is the Vikings' last stand to a degree. If they drop to 4-6, good night. They ain't getting back into it, especially with how J.J. McCarthy's looked. And for the Bears, if they can go to 7-3, I think they're writing their ticket. I don't want to say writing the ticket to the playoffs too early. It's a tough NFC, but like, I don't think anyone's catching up on them. I think they would be in a strong position to be a playoff team at that point.
Can we do a little like breakout conversation on both of these quarterbacks? Because one of my first notes in this in our show notes for this game was JJ McCarthy gives me anxiety watching him play. Like he plays far too fast. I think his footwork is always so weird. Or like if he's balanced in the pocket, he's gonna make a good throw. But there's so many times where he's like his heels are clicking in the backfield. He's putting his entire body in the passes that he doesn't really have to. And I feel like he's trying to do too much. I don't know if that's JJ McCarthy or 9. Let me first get that out there. I don't know if this is 9. I don't know if this is JJ.
I'm pretty sure it is 9.
I'm saying both of them. If it's 9, I think 9 has to stop putting it feels like he's trying to do far too much to play quarterback.
So a few different things that I noticed on tape, because I wrote an article on CBSSports.com that went up this week, basically grading all the rookie contract quarterbacks so far this season. So I went through and watched the seasons, and with him, there were some really glaring, I won't call them red flags, but things that just they have to get better. And the max effort throws is one of them. You literally see him recoiling his arm like a closer in baseball. After watch Tom Brady, watch Aaron Rodgers. That should never happen. You are doing too much if your arm is recoiling after a throw. That's a baseball thing when it's a max effort with a smaller projectile. In football, that is not really how you want to be generating RPMs. You want it to start more with your lower half, and your arm kind of just finishes it. If you're really trying to hit with that arm at the end, you're just going to be inaccurate. You're adding another layer of variance, and that's why he's missed a ton of throws, especially down the football field when he's tried that. And then also you mentioned just the play speed and how he gives you anxiety. There are on his play action, when he turns back to the field, it's again, he's giving max effort on his turn. He's really doing it aggressively. It's just dude, just calm down. Just have the best quarterbacks, their fakes, their footwork. It is graceful. It's easy. It's steady. It keeps them on balance. If you're doing that, if you're trying to so hard to be so quick and so efficient with your footwork that it looks like you are putting effort into it, in my opinion, I think you're doing it wrong. And that's what I see consistently from JJ McCarthy on tape.
And I think one of the throws that really stood out from the Ravens game, I think it was the 4th down. I think it was an out route that he just missed to Justin Jefferson. It's a gotta have it situation. He drops back in the pocket and he crow hops into an out route in the pocket. And I'm just what are you doing? You don't have to try and generate this much force to throw the ball. And it's worrisome because even when he is balanced, when he is in the pocket and he has his mechanics are good, the ball comes out really nice. He made a couple of really nice throws. And the frustrating thing is at this point in the season, you can tell his head's in the right place for the most part. It's just he cannot execute the things that his brain wants to do. And that comes down to mechanics, the footwork, the little things about the position. And like you said, it feels like he's trying to play too fast. It feels like he's trying to get everything back. He's trying to go get the big play. He's trying to make this so difficult on himself. And part of that, I wonder if Kevin O'Connell's just telling him hey man, just relax. It's okay. You're good. Just don't try and do too much, because we've seen quarterbacks in this offense don't have to do too much to be successful. So I'm a little worried about the mechanics and stuff not being fixed, or at least not being better, because we had a whole year and two whole off seasons to really get this started.
My notes from McCarthy coming out, some of them: 1-speed thrower, far hash is iffy. He's an overstrider. Likes to force first read. That's when he attacks tight windows. You've seen that a lot down the football field. That's why he has, almost as many picks as completions on deep passes. And then I wrote layering ? That's just that's what you're seeing. He's kind of still that same guy. And that's really concerning because those were obvious. I mean, everyone talked about the one speed trying to do too much with his arm on every single throw and not ever making it look easy, to not ever just like letting the throw come to him and not having to feel like he's putting that throw in there. And that's still a problem. Still very much a problem through 4 games here.
Also, real quick, J.J. McCarthy hit his throwing hand on the helmet in practice.
Yep,
so.
It's the limit of the hand. So that's just kind of, unfortunately, how his season's gone. Flip side, though, Caleb, Bears offense, watching him, I think just obvious signs of growth. I mean, the way he attacks the middle of the football field this year compared to last year, so many confident, step into it, all cleats in the ground, just go let it rip to someone, and, hasn't always worked out. His accuracy, I think, is still the biggest issue with him on tape, but you're seeing that combined with a sack avoidance and just a mentality around scrambling that is so much better than the guy we saw last year, so much more like the guy we saw the Heisman year at USC. And if you're a Bears fan, like, you've seen improvement considerably, and it's like there's still meat on the bone watching the tape. You're still like, damn, there's still like things he can get better at. And if he does, it's really scary where his ceiling can push.
I think people are going to look at Caleb Williams' scrambles and how often he scrambles. And right now, according to NFL Pro, he scrambled on 22% of his dropbacks this season, second highest rate in the NFL behind Jaden Daniels. I think people are going to look at the scrambles and say, like, oh, he's leaving the pocket early. Oh, he's not working in this offense. And I think that's also sort of, we're like wish casting the Lions Ben Johnson offense with the Bears Ben Johnson offense, with 2 completely different quarterbacks and 2 vastly different offensive lines. I think Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson have given Caleb Williams what he's wanted, which is the interior pressure has been shored up, because what he can do is he can make his tackles right. That's the biggest thing when you watch this offense is Ben Johnson is hiding his tackles in pass pro situations because they want to be a lot better running the football. So you play Theo Benedette at left tackle instead of Braxton Jones or Ozzie Trapilo. And because Benedette is a much better run blocker, but he's also objectively awful in just straight up pass blocking situations. And while Darnell Wright has his highs as a pass protector, everybody saw him slam Brian Burns into the ground off that spin move. There are also some really low lows with Darnell Wright as a pass protector. So they're doing a lot to hide their tackles in pass pro, and a lot of that has to do with Caleb Williams because he's making those guys right. There are a lot of passes outside the pocket because they do a lot of play action. They try and hide those guys so Caleb Williams can get out the pocket and throw it downfield. I think that's the biggest thing. They are throwing the ball downfield. Caleb Williams is throwing the ball downfield at a much higher rate than he was last season. This offense is built to be explosive using the pass and efficient using the run game. So I think the pitfalls of that come when the run game isn't working, which is what we're going to get into with this game preview. If the run game isn't working, you have to find out another way to move the ball. But that's where the Bears want to live offensively this season. They want to be explosive using the pass, and Caleb Williams is bringing them that. Now it's just about just be a little more accurate.
Yeah, I like the Bears in this one, truthfully. I just think that it comes down to the quarterback. I trust Caleb Williams so much more than I trust J.J. McCarthy at this point.
I think I trust Caleb Williams more in this game. I think the Bears do win this one. I am curious how often they leave Benedette versus John Grenard in pass pro, because this is a much different Bears team than the one they saw week 1, where they were trying to live in this straight drop back world. So if they can sort of hide and mask Theo Benedette versus John Grenard in pass pro, or even Andrew Van Ginkel versus Benedette in pass pro, I think you'll have something there. The game is really going to be decided through Jonathan Allen, Levi Drake Rodriguez, Jalen Redmond, Javon Hargrave against Drew Dahlman, Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson. That's how they're going to win the game.
All right, we're going to take a quick break after that. going to get to the rest of the games.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, Panthers at Falcons. Falcons 3.5-point favorites. 42.5 points is the over/under. A lot of bad storylines here. The storylines here revolve around like, is Bryce going to get benched? Is Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot, are they going to get fired? That is Dave Canales. What's his future, and like what's the Panthers' future? Should they bench Bryce Young? A lot of bad storylines, unfortunately, for these two NFC South teams.
This is this week's anxiety bowl. Like nothing about this game feels normal. It just feels like there's just going to be a lot of whoever loses this game is not going to come out of it very good. Like heads are probably going to roll after whoever loses this game. Did you see the Raheem Morris interview about Darnell Mooney?
Oh, he broke his collarbone on
the first day of training camp, and we're finding out now. Everybody thought he was just sitting through like a random shoulder injury and called him soft. He broke his collarbone in training camp. What's happening with the Falcons? It feels like I'm taking crazy pills every time I hear like something from the Falcons.
And Moody, he's also had a hamstring. He has not looked great this season. I mean, that's a big part of why their explosive ability that we saw last year is way down. But like that feels like one of those, again, for a guy to get fired, usually you have something like a bad answer in a press conference. Saying a guy had a broken collarbone midway through the season that you're just releasing it now is one of those answers where we're like, what's going on in that organization?
Yeah, this feels like if you guys don't win this game, like we might get some heads rolling early. And with all there's a lot of smoke around the Zach Robinson and Oklahoma State job. Like it just feels like everything is sort of crumbling at the last minute. But I also think that this game is a very winnable one for the Falcons because the Panthers have the worst pass rush in football outside of Chicago. They're second to last in the NFL in pressure rate, and they don't blitz a lot. So if they're not going to be able to win with 4, this should be a game where the passing offense gets it going. And if the passing offense gets it going, I just wonder how Bryce Young is going to play from behind. And it sort of begs to question, like, is this it for Bryce Young?
Yeah, he has been, in my eyes, the single most disappointing quarterback in the NFL this season. I don't even think it's close, just because he's not looked good once. There's not anything to point to where it's like, oh yeah, whereas, last year down the stretch, I feel like there's like 3 or 4 games where it's like, okay, that's Bryce Young. That's the guy we thought. This year, just 0, absolutely 0. And that's heartbreaking for Panthers fans because you're going to have to do it all over again. Unfortunately, it's just going to have to reset. The Falcons have to win this game though. They just have to. You cannot, if you lose this game. Yeah, I mean, I would not surprise me if heads do roll there, whether it's, coordinator firing, Terry Fontenot being gone. It's just you can't start 3-7 with this team that was supposed to be their breakout sort of your NFC South potential champion sort of year.
Yeah, this was supposed to be we got it all figured out. We got rid of the quarterback, and now we got our guy in there, and it should work out. But nothing has worked for them offensively. So this is a must win for this Falcons team. Whereas I also think this game is a little bit of a must win for the Panthers. Like, I know we joke about it, but technically they're not all the way out of it. Record wise, they're not all the way out of the playoff picture. They're 5-5. And like I said, they already have the win over the Cowboys. Like, if you actually want to be serious, like if you want to be serious this year, you go and win this game. You win games against teams in turmoil. But you could also say that about the Falcons. So, again, anxiety bowl.
All right, let's get to Texans at Titans. Titans 6.5 point dogs at home. Over-unders 37.5 points here. This is a battle between the number 1 EPA per play defense and the number 32 EPA per play offense. That's why you like the under. That's why I love the Texans. And the Titans with no Jeffrey Simmons, still not back yet, against the best defense in the NFL, they might not score a point. I don't know if they score a point in this one.
So CJ Stroud might not play in this game.
Doesn't change my mind whatsoever.
It doesn't change my mind at all. It doesn't change my mind about this game at all. But CJ Stroud's not going to play in this game. It's not going to matter because this Texans defense eats you alive. Like they're so fast and they are so aggressive. And I actually think they've gotten some really good play as of late from Kamari Lassiter has been incredible. I think he leads the team in tackles, which normally when your corner leads the team in tackles, it's a bad sign, but not for Kamari Lassiter because he's basically a linebacker playing corner. And you've just gotten good play from your linebacker group. This is a very, very bad matchup for a team with the worst offense in the NFL.
Yeah, if there's any silver-ish lining for Titans this season, I think their last 2 first-round picks along the offensive line have looked competent. I think Skoronski more so than Latham, but I think Latham back at right tackle is at least a guy who can be a plus run blocker at the next level. He may never be, will never be a high-end pass protector. That, I didn't even think about kicking inside to guard, and I think you'd have an elite guard tandem for the foreseeable future, which in today's NFL, as we talked about, is very meaningful. You can scheme around if you have a really elite guard tandem that gives you firm pockets. So that at least the offensive line moving forward should be in a good enough spot. You just need skill talent. You can't start 2 day 3 rookies at wide receiver and expect to beat this Texans team. It just ain't gonna happen. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think for my silver lining for the Titans, I think Cam Ward has done a little bit better when it comes to managing sacks and sort of playing with the pressure. Like he's gotten better at that. And I thought that was the biggest issue that I had with him through the first part of this season was he just wasn't doing well with the pressure and managing pressure. And even though this team is bad, one of the translatable things you want to see is, can you avoid negative catastrophic plays? Can you avoid having those pressures turn into sacks? Can you avoid the turnovers? And lately he's been able to avoid that. So I think that could be a sign of growth. I'm curious to see if he can do it again against the best defense in the NFL. Probably not. But I think that growth shows you like, hey, there's something here. We just have to continue to improve.
Yeah, I did the rookie contract review on CBSSports.com. I'm not worried about Cam Ward. He is low on my list of worries for this Titans team. And I think you'll see a guy flourish as his career moves forward. He's shown more than enough for me to be encouraged about going forward. 49ers at Cardinals. 49ers 3-point favorites here on the road. 47.5 points is the over-under for the Cardinals. They'll be without Marvin Harrison Jr. in this game. Appendicitis. His appendix removed, I believe. Might be without Will Johnson and Max Milton too. So that 3 points looking real tasty right now for the San Francisco 49ers.
Did you see the Brock Purdy discussions that Kyle Shanahan has had?
I did not.
So he said Brock Purdy will be a limited aggressive participant at practice yesterday. Whatever that means. Like we're just saying stuff with Brock Purdy now. I don't know if he's going to come back. He might. I mean, this schedule is still very winnable for the 49ers.
Brock Purdy being out longer than Joe Burrow would be incredible. It would be like incredibly ironic.
It would be hilarious because it will never quiet the soft benching stuff. Yeah. I think that's also like if there are terms or phrases that categorize the season by each like period that we've been in, the first 4 weeks of the season is categorized by the phrase hospital ball. The last few weeks have been characterized by the phrase soft benching. Nobody's being soft benched. The only one that's been soft benched is Kyler. Mac Jones is not going to get the starting job over Brock Purdy. I don't think that's going to be a real thing that happens. There are about 260 million reasons why Mac Jones is not going to start over Brock Purdy. But I do think it's very funny that Kyle Shanahan every time he picks a quarterback, the quarterback just implodes.
You don't want to be the quarterback that Kyle Shanahan just tapped as the guy. You want to be the guy who's not the guy. You're in the best position in the world. You're going to look like a superstar. But once you're the guy, it's like, hey, your days are numbered. That's it.
You don't want to be. I think it's because you don't want to be the guy that Kyle Shanahan could just be like, all right, he's got it. Well, I'll call a play. If it doesn't work, he can make sure he got it. But if you're the backup, it's like, oh man, I gotta nit this down to a team. It's like, if you're like the first child, I'm the oldest kid. It's like, all right, you got it, man. You'll figure it out. Going down to the fifth or the fourth, it's like, okay, everything has to be this. He's
scripting out your entire day for you.
Yes. That's Kyle Shanahan. If the 49ers quarterbacks were his children.
Even still. Brock, even given that they're not benching Brock Purdy, it's like Mac's playing really well. You got to hand it to him. This is the best ball he's played of his career. It's something that I said before Purdy signed the contract that I thought it was going to be almost like an audition to see how Mac could do in the offense because everyone remembers the 2021 draft and all the conversation that went down there. And lo and behold, he looks so much better than Trey Lance. He is kind of everything everyone thought he would be in the Kyle Shanahan offense. I mean, it's still not good enough, right? I still think there's big issues when Mac's in there that you have a ceiling to the offense, but he's kind of playing well.
If he can point and shoot in that offense, if you tell him where to go with the ball, as soon as he hits his back foot, that ball is out of there. So I think he's played well. I think he's played himself into potentially being a starter somewhere else. If we're following the Kyle Shanahan school of QB rehab, Carolina Panthers quarterback Mac Jones might be a thing soon, but he's played really well.
He feels like he would fit in Carolina. I feel like Mac Jones. I feel like that's just aesthetically Carolina. All right, let's get to Lions Eagles. Eagles 2.5-point favorites here. 46.5 points over under. A big reason why the Eagles are favored. The Lions are banged up. Terrion Arnold, Aiden Hutchinson, Kirby Joseph, Sam Laporta, Penei Sewell all didn't practice yesterday, whereas the Eagles back to full participation. Nolan Smith, we saw him last Monday against the Packers, 19 snaps. He's back in. That'll increase as the weeks go on. So the Eagles back at full strength. Lions banged up. How do we see it playing out?
I think this one's going to be another game like the Packers game last week where it's real gritty, real low scoring. But I do sort of feel like the Eagles win this one because, again, I just think there's too many guys on that defensive line. This is the best defensive line unit Vic Fangio has had in his last 2 years. Or not the best, but I think they have so many waves of guys. Like Jalen Phillips coming in gives them exactly what they needed in terms of length, flexibility as a pass rusher, and a guy who can win without blitzing. And I think that's the biggest thing. Vic Fangio has blitzed 2% more than he did last season, but even without those blitzes, their pressure rate is much higher this season than it was last season. So now they're relying more on their front, and I think that in this game, if Detroit's going to if they want to win this game, they got to try and hide their interior offensive line against Jalen Carter. They got to try and help him out. They got to try and help Ratledge or whoever's playing left guard out because I just worry that Jalen Carter and Moro Ojomo are going to take over the game, and Jared Goff does not play well with pressure up the middle versus pressure from the outside.
Yeah, that's the biggest worry. Quite easily. Moro Ojomo's been awesome this season also, by the way. He's not quite Milton Williams, I'd say. I saw someone say he's better than Milton Williams. No. Milton was an absolute star. But he's very good. He is a true difference maker in his own right. And even just calling out the play on fourth down. The stuff like that is what you want out of a defensive lineman. Obviously, a very smart dude in his own right. So I go back. I went back and forth on the Seahawks game. I've gone back and forth on this one because I buy the Dan Campbell taking over play calling a little bit. Like I think they're going to give a kitchen sink approach here, knowing that this game has massive implications for seeding at the top. Like you want the 1 seed in this NFC. And if the Lions win this game, they have then the tiebreaker with the Eagles for that 1 seed. Both would go to 7-3 if they win this game. So I think you see just empty the tank sort of offensive play calling from the Detroit Lions, knowing they can kind of put their stamp on it. Now, they won't be first in the NFC by the end of this, but we've talked about the Seahawks and Rams have two games against each other, so could beat themselves up. If the Lions can go on a heater right now, they have as good a chance as anyone of getting the 1 seed. So I lean Lions just a touch because of that.
I think that if there's one thing that really stood out against the Commanders in Dan Campbell's first play calling tenure with the Lions, they got Jameson Williams involved a lot.
Yeah.
They made it an effort to get Jameson Williams involved. And I think his speed matters so much in this offense. I think that if you get him involved, if you get him going early, that threat of his speed is going to open up so many more lanes for Amon-Ra St. Brown, for Sam Laporta. And I think the best thing that Dan Campbell did, of course, it was against Commanders. So obviously I have to hedge with that. They used the speed on the team to open up lanes. They used the speed to really test the defense. They want to get Jahmyr Gibbs involved. They want to get Jameson Williams involved. And I think if there's any way to really beat this Eagles team, you got to get it to your fast guys in space. That's obviously like football. But in order to beat this Eagles team that wants to just sit on this perch at 20 yards deep and say, beat us in this area, you're going to have to win after the catch. And I think they have the guys to. I'm just worried about that offensive line against this Eagles team. And even though the Eagles offense still hasn't been impressive, and now there's AJ Brown going on Twitch streams saying that he's not happy about the offense.
Got me in fantasy.
And then he doubled down on it the other day, which I think is incredible. I still think that there's just, if the Lions choose to play man coverage in this game, they're not going to win. Because there's too many guys on this team.
Everyone's been through, or everyone knows what AJ, that feeling of getting so upset that you're no, I don't want to produce anymore. Don't throw me the ball. No, I don't even want the ball anymore. Stop throwing me it. That's everyone's gone through that. Sorry, AJ, that had to happen to you at the biggest stage. All right, let's get to Cowboys at Raiders. Cowboys 3.5-point favorites. 50.5 points is the over-under here. I just want to start with this because I couldn't believe this when I saw it yet again this week. But you drafted a running back 6th overall. You got an offense coordinator this year in Chip Kelly, who famous for his running game. That was all people talked about with Ohio State last year, was look at what they're doing in the running game. Obviously, they talked about the wide receivers too, but with Chip Kelly specifically, they're dead last in the NFL in EPA per rush. They have the worst running game in the NFL this season. Is this a one-and-done season for the Raiders brass?
Absolutely. I think this is a one-and-done, at least for Pete Carroll, I think, which is a really rough way to go out if you're Pete Carroll. The biggest explanation for why Chip Kelly has struggled is because he doesn't have Ohio State's talent. The talent gap between Ohio State and Michigan State is much, much wider than the gap between the Raiders and the Broncos. And now you're on the other, you are Michigan State in this scenario. So I just think he has struggled to adjust back to the NFL, where he can't just leave his offensive linemen on islands and say, y'all got it. It's okay. But the run game has struggled because they just don't have the same quality of talent, and the talent gap isn't as much in their favor as it was in Ohio State.
15.4 points per game. 15.4. Every other team in the bottom 4 in points per game is starting a rookie quarterback.
That's rough.
Damning. It's damning, to say the least. Yeah, I like the Cowboys. I like the Cowboys quite a bit in this one.
I like the Cowboys running away. The Raiders, despite having Max Crosby, have the second lowest pressure rate in the NFL, but I will say they've been pretty good stopping the run. So, I mean, if you can get a good Adam Butler game and then Max Crosby like supernova, maybe, but I just think the Cowboys just run away with this one.
All right, Jets at Patriots. Patriots 12.5-point favorites here on Thursday night. Over-unders 43.5. You take it away. I don't have much to add to this one.
Do you like the uniforms the Patriots going to be wearing on Thursday? I kind of like them.
I haven't seen them. Let me see this.
I think they're called Northeasterners. Like it's really, I kind of like them. It feels like a nice alternate
I like the color.
Yeah, it feels like a nice alternate uniform.
Yes, I like going with a different shade of your same color. But like that still signals you're the same team, but not like a highlighter version. That's more of a muted version of the blue. I like it. I'm a fan.
Yeah, it still feels like we're watching the Patriots, but it feels like an alternate reality, like a Earth like 828 version of the New England Patriots. If we're going back to Marvel references, I just think the Patriots are going to blow this team out. Yeah, like it's just not going to be a close game at all. But if I were to tell you that Caleb Chaisson leads this Patriots team in sacks before the season, if I were to tell you that, would you have believed me?
No. Even though they had no edge rushers, I'd still be like, no. Mr. T-Rex in the sand.
Yeah, like the team. I can't. It's just so Jaguars for you to draft this guy first overall, and he just does nothing for the first 4 years of his career. Leaves the Jaguars, and now Caleb Chaisson has more sacks than the Jaguars.
Oh no!
Like it's just like they don't. You can never be in the hell that raised me because I'm a Jaguars fan. This type of stuff, this is just a normal Thursday for me.
Oh, that's honestly unbelievable. The only thing worse than that would be if Urban Meyer somehow got back in the NFL and won the Super Bowl. That would really I would stop watching the NFL. I'm being so serious. I'm holding you to that. I don't think it's going to happen. I feel very good about it happening, but I'm holding you to that. It also injuries in this game. It's not only the Jets, the one-win Jets. It's also they're without Garrett Wilson and Azaria Thomas in this one, so probably their best players on both sides of the ball. Excuse me, 2-win Jets. Sorry, best players on both sides of the ball at this point. Maybe not best players, but like key players on both sides of the ball. They're without going to the Patriots.
I don't even think like it's going to be that much of a difference, even whoever does or doesn't play. Like Azaria Thomas or Garrett Wilson not playing, or Will McDonald or Harrison Phillips. Like, good luck, man. Good luck.
Might be an early night for your boy. Let's get to our locks recap. I am going with Pats minus 12 in that 12.5 in that Thursday night football game. I'm going with the Bengals Steelers over. Going with the Bucs Bills under 47.5, and I'm going with the Texans minus 6.5 against the Titans. You got Aaron Rodgers over 232.5 against the Bengals. That one feels safe. The Cowboys minus 3.5 against the Raiders. Texans Titans under 37.5. Caleb Williams going under in his passing. 225.5 is that number, and then Devon Achan's over receiving yards 39.5 against that Commanders duo in Madrid. Kyle went Joe Flacco over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Texans minus 6.5 again. Caleb Williams over 1.5 passing touchdowns. So you guys are a little competitive there in that one. Different sides of the coin on Caleb. And then a Puka Nacua anytime tutty. That was your locks, sponsored by Cash App. As you heard me say at the top of the show, new Cash App users can use our code to get free money. It's code PUSHING. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 right in your account. Thank you, Cash App. There you have it. There's our Thursday preview of Week 11. We'll be back doing the review of Week 11 on Sunday night. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time, keep pushing.